after Ultimate Precure, I kind of need some kind of palate cleanser. Just something to get my mind off of that show, as well as maybe fill in the space for a more adult take on the cures. And, oh, what's this? This is 100 times better than Ultimate Precure. This is a winner. This is a god tier anime. Well, with comments like that, this could end up being a pretty interesting little show. Let's see what else they have. Something about it being a dirty Precure? Oh, I get it. So basically, they don't mind if they get a little more beat up in their dresses, meaning that this could lead to a few more slightly rougher fights and,
20 minutes later.
I might have made the worst mistake of my entire life. Okay, so for today, we're actually going to experiment with possibly covering a new series. Yeah, while the series is airing on a more convenient day than Saturday, when we have another thing to cover, it still does kind of eat into my week. Not to mention, some of the stuff here might not exactly pass on this platform and might even get us into some trouble, so depending on the response we get from our audience and the higher-ups at YouTube, we might make this a weekly review series, or at least make one more big video after the fact. As such, we'll also forego some of the usual review formats and talk a little more generally about this anime and its first episode. With that in mind, this is Gushing Over the Magical Girls, as in the title of the show, and not us just talking about it here on YouTube. Just start the video. Starting off as a manga by Akihiro Ononaka in 2019, this is a bit more of a satirical take on the magical girl genre, in particular that one franchise we talk about, and just so happen to do a whole video about parodies about it, though that was more about shows that weren't explicitly about magical girls, probably should have mentioned that. But yeah, the first two chapters of this manga, and the first episode of this anime that mostly adapted them, quickly established what this is all about, which at first seemed to be about this team made up of your standard Precure-esque lineup of a pink, a yellow, and a blue. Or are we going to start up some kind of endless argument about her actually being green teal or something, am I right? They're fighting against this rather gimpy-looking demon with Jason Voorhees mask, which, to be fair, isn't too far out of the ballpark for Precure, which is something I could say about a lot of things in this show, unfortunately. However, after a few panty shots in just the first few minutes of the anime, it starts to become clear what the show is really about. Though interestingly, it wasn't even really about this seemingly main trio that we started off with, but rather another trio that's going to be started by this character named Utena Hiragi, who was a massive fangirl of theirs, and even dreamt about becoming the sixth ranger to this team called the Tresmagia. Thus she made a contract with a surprisingly even more sus-looking space buddy. That should cover the rest of the video. And after a transformation sequence that we definitely can't show here, she was dressed up in an outfit more akin to something from Queensblade than Precure. Yep, hilariously enough, Venalita here, in spite of having the voice of Cure Happy, was actually one of the bad guys trying to take down the Tresmagia. Also, while we're talking about Precure staff connections, why don't you just take a listen to some of the music from the first battle of the show. Yeah, kind of dangerously close to the music of one of the more popular Precure seasons. You'd almost think that the guy who worked on Hardcatch did the music for this show. Oh, he totally did. Yeah, Yasuharu Takahashi, the composer of Fresh, Heartcatch, and Smile, was listed as the show's main musician. Purposeful staff choices like that do show how this anime was made with respect for what it was spoofing, much in the same vein Akibaranger was to the rest of Super Sentai. Just as long as you can get around the fact that one of the directors of the show also worked on Kanoko and Lace vs. Butlers and To Love Through Darkness. And if you know all those titles, hello my fellow degenerate! But yeah, while Utena initially turned down the position of being an antagonist to her beloved magical girls, Dark Miyuki wasn't gonna have it, and managed to cowprod her into being evil. This was done through some good old blackmail, but they also did bring up some good points about magical girl and villain dynamics that tend to make the former stronger heroes. Thus, between the threat of trending on Twitter and being gaslit into believing that the Tresmagia could use a good rival, Utena had her first couple of quote-unquote battles with them in this first episode. Their initial bout actually started off like a very common Precure battle, with the antagonist turning a random object into a monster, in this case a flower with tentacles, which, yeah, why is that not an uncommon thing in the Precure franchise? Again, you could say a lot of this was an overly cynical and even kind of mean-spirited parody of the magical girl genre, as of course Precure would never actually go into direct hentai territory. But to be fair, it's also not unheard of for them to have tentacle monsters, or villainesses like Utena here, who, after seeing her beloved magical girls in compromising positions, start to embrace her more sadistic side. I mean, you try and tell me with a straight face that none of these characters are Dami mommies. And hey, the fight did supposedly end with love and friendship winning out in the end, like even Utena wanted, though unfortunately we didn't get to see it. What we did see was again stuff that we can't show on this website, but we can show the hilarious after effects. Yeah, legit, one of the best parts of this anime so far, and again, much like Akibaranger, was the spot-on comedic timing that was so good that they didn't even have to rely on Popco and PPB just being there for no real reason. But yeah, between Utena's reaction faces to Venelita's stone cold manipulations, it was just a laugh riot. Which on that note, Utena's second battle with her idols involved her forcibly putting some smiles on them through tickle torture while she had the biggest smile of all. Okay, maybe this bad thing wasn't actually Miyuki, but rather her blink and you'll miss it evil clone. And again, Precure does seem like it has a bit of a thing for S&M, so how much of this can really be said as cynical parody? But yeah, that was essentially the first episode of Gushing over the magical girls, or at least what we could show of it. And having read a little ahead into the manga, I can say, if anything, this is my kind of cup of tea, and not just for the fan service, though that's certainly a nice cherry on top. But what I really like so far, based on what I've read in the manga, is the main character of Utena and her conflicts. I mean, obviously, she's morally against torturing her idols because otherwise she's actually an absolute sweetheart who waters the flowers. But not only does she start to find a more personal pleasure of giving them a good spanking, she also does start to realize that no matter what, she has an important role to fulfill as an antagonist who bears her adversaries by providing a consistent threat to the Trismachia. In that sense, it even kind of surpasses some of the recent Precure seasons that have chosen to de-emphasize the villains, leading to some dragged out and unengaging plots. Meanwhile, here, the show will explore some interesting dynamics not just between Utena and her eventual team, but even amongst an even wider cast of heroes and villains. So, for something that is still very much a parody, it is going to explore the spirit of Precure and the superhero genre in general. But yeah, if I'm going to be totally honest with myself, the actual highlight is going to be the over-the-top spoofing and insane fan service of Utena and even certain other characters giving into degeneracy. It's going to lead to all kinds of comedy, and even possibly some decent action depending on how much budget they're willing to put into the show. Time will tell, but I'm definitely personally going to check out the show for myself, and if you want us to cover it for this channel, feel free to let us know. This girl knows what she's doing is wrong, and yeah, we all know, it just feels so. Thank you for watching, and be sure to check out our weekly reviews for some of the more official stuff, which, depending on how wonderful it turns out, this stuff might end up becoming our main for the channel. Yeah, again, still not seeing much to get me excited for the 2024 Precure series. I mean, we're still gonna check it out, of course, but depending on how I feel about it, I think we might need to expand this channel into some other venues. Still, do look forward to it. Until then, though, farewell for now, my friends, and if you'll excuse me, I think I'm just gonna go change my address, just in case some guys feel like violently knocking on my door pretty soon.